This is how serious it is, Ben. You said, Brandon, I want to talk about Final Fantasy IV, and I said, okay. I didn't even ask why. I'm assuming there's some kind of context here. You know that you mentioned before that you like to roll out a JRPG every now and then, a classic one, which totally surprised me. I didn't think you'd want to do something like that. Of course you do that, Ben. And it just happened to be Final Fantasy IV. Mm-hmm. But something lit a fire in you that you needed to come out here, take some time, bring the Game Trailers audience with you, and talk about this wonderful, wonderful Super Nintendo, or the second best Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo.
I think Final Fantasy IV, second best. Well, okay, 6 is really good. Final Fantasy IV does so many things. It's such a landmark game that it's worth talking about. I want to talk about these old games and how cool they are. And you're not stopping me. This is great. I'm so happy that we're doing this. And this is...
For the next 2 hours, we're going to be here.
One of Damiani's favorite Final Fantasy games. So I thought, what better person to bring on than... He told me... So I guess there's this weird thing in the PSP version of the game where if you beat it 10 times, the game is just like, you can't play me anymore.
Oh no, the DS version?
Or is it the PSP or the DS version?
No, it's a DS version.
Oh, okay, I thought it was the PSP
it's either 5 or 10 times when you do New Game Plus, or just New Game after your 5th time, I think, or 10th, you get a message after it saying like, "Thank you for playing so much." Then you can't play that file anymore.
It's like the Wii messages. They were like, maybe you should go outside and run around a little bit. You've been playing video games for 40 minutes.
I was genuinely upset. I was like, this game is now really over. I can't play it anymore.
So you beat it 5 times?
Yeah. Maybe 10.
Because I wanted to prove, because everyone kept telling me the DS version was super hard and frustrating. So I just like breezed through it 5 times. I was like, what is with people? This game is not hard.
So what specifically? So you said there's a lot of things.
There's a lot of things, but
I mean, a lot of like fun moments, or specifically a lot of like new systems. Or?
No, it just straight up does things better than a lot of other RPGs and JRPGs.
Because one thing I don't know, I produced the Final Fantasy retrospective, so I went back and played all of those games, or watched people play them, or watched all of the footage of all of like the main games up until right before Final Fantasy 13 came out. So I remember like a little bit about the game, but like specifically, I remember like active time battles is a big thing.
Yes, that's huge.
And the characters getting more into the story and having them represent their classes as opposed to just being like, oh yeah, white mage or whatever.
Yes,
but
that's what I want to say.
What I don't know is, and what was hard for me to research at the time, was where that stood as far as all RPGs were concerned. You know, because I didn't play like crazy RPGs in the Genesis. I didn't play a lot of PC, RPGs. So where did it stand in the? Was it 90? 91, 89?
I think it was localized in 92. The Super Nintendo version came out in 92.
So around that time, what other games were we getting? I mean, how did it stand up against the competition? Huh, Doms?
In the US, there was only one game that year that mattered. It's called A Link to the Past.
Right. Which is a whole nother beast.
No, I mean,
4 is arguably maybe a deeper game than Link to the Past. I mean, Link to the Past is as close to gaming perfection as you're likely going to get.
I will say this: like, A Link to the Past was easy enough to understand for me, being so young as like a little kid then, that I was able to like finish A Link to the Past. Whereas Final Fantasy IV, it was just confusing enough with its system to like a very young kid, where I like struggled with a lot of it, and I actually didn't finish it when I originally played it. I actually made it to the moon, but then once I got there, it was just like too hard for me. And like I started trying to like use items. I didn't understand half the stuff in there. I was like, I know what a potion is, but some of this other stuff, like I didn't understand any of the terminology. And when I went back and like played more Final Fantasy games and learned it a bit and got older, I was like, oh, this is what this stuff did. Went back and played it again.
And there were a lot of things still lost in translation. Like it was, like 7 is really where the series finally exploded. But like 6 definitely was more popular. I would imagine sold better than 4. And I can't back any of this stuff up. Of course, we're getting all these facts wrong. But I just remember a lot of things, them trying to name, deities and other things. Like I had inspirations, but it like did not cross that language barrier. So in English, like all of the monster names were all wacky. And like when they remade for the PSP and 3DS, like the names would change later because they're like, oh no, here's what. It's not Rubicante, it's what stuff like, or King Yazo, or like there were some very strange names when the game finally launched. So I could see a young Damiani being like, what are these crazy words?
I mean, it was more like the spell names and like the items, like they were all confusing. Some of them, like lit. I mean, was okay, lightning. I like got that, but then you get down to like some of the other ones. I forgot. Like, didn't like haste have like a different term back? I don't know. There was like. Some of the abilities had different like names back then, and I didn't fully understand them. And I was like, "What?" Like, or was it Tincture or whatever? The Tinture.
Yes.
I was like
What does that do?
Tincture. I was like, when I was a little kid, I was like, wait, what is this?
Right.
I'm gonna try using it, and then when it didn't do anything on your character, you're like, okay, I'm never using this item again. Like,
Your brain was expanding, Mike.
It's like, oh no. I was like, where's the one that does like AoE damage to everyone? And of course, I didn't know what AoE was even then.
So did you get through the whole game, Ben? You played all of Final Fantasy IV?
No, so I haven't played it in a very long time. The way I originally played it, and the only way I've actually beaten it, I've played all of the versions, but is the Chronicles on PlayStation 1. Which has horrendous load times.
Yeah, the load times are the big bummer there.
The PSP version is my favorite. I love what they did with the new sprites and just everything. It's my favorite version of it. But the thing that I wanted to first talk about is the beginning of that game and how it contextualizes everything. So many JRPGs, and one of my favorites, Persona 4, is guilty of this. That game, for the first 3 hours or so, you're just talking to people.
Yeah.
And you're just getting like dumps and dumps of information. Final Fantasy 4, you are on this, the first thing you see, you're on this airship. You're Cecil, you're the commander of the Red Barons, okay? And you're going to do a mission. And they don't just show you it, you get into a battle, and they show you how badass a Dark Knight is. You just wreck those fools that get on the airship. And then you learn about Kain, who is your friend, who could have advanced in rank if he had been a Dark Knight. But instead, his father was of the Dragoons, and to uphold his legacy, he's going to be a Dragoon.
You're getting into some possible lore connections there with Final Fantasy II.
We're getting into spoiler territory?
No,
not spoiler territory.
there's a theory that like Kane's father was in Final Fantasy II was a Dragoon.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, that's rough.
There's
I mean,
all crazy.
if we're really gonna put like real talk here, like, do you think there's really a connection? Do you think like,
no,
you know,
it's just a
how
reference.
rabid those guys were developing those games in the short time that
they were
had.
just throwing it as an Easter egg. But
you know,
then they did that
5
crazy
years
talk
later,
with like 7 and 10, like Shinra's in both, and they're really in the same universe. I was like, please stop. Just don't
We're
go
going
any
down
further.
some dark rabbit hole.
But no, like to echo what Ben said, like when the beginning of the game, when you're on the you're commander of the Red Wings, and you're like stealing all these
Red Barons.
you're stealing all these crystals for Baron. It's like
You're
doing this evil stuff. Like, why are you like doing this? And then you see like the self-reflection. He goes back to home. And he like questions the king. He's like, no, go away, Cecil. You're not like here or anything. And then like he confides in like Rosa, his like girlfriend. It's like, well, dude, this guy's like seriously depressed and stuff. I was like, this is like weird.
This is literally 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
You get all of this stuff. And
yeah,
for the first time, okay, Final Fantasy V is an amazing game, but I don't care about those classes beyond what cool things they can do in battle, which is great in its own way. But I felt attached to the Dark Knight. I felt attached to the Dragoon because they had these histories of these characters that they very succinctly presented to you. And it was, in my mind, the first JRPG to like best do that. And I still think to this day, it's too much about stats and not enough about having that be meaningful in the world.
Sure, I think it was that guilt that you felt, you know, when you burn Rydia's home down.
You kill her mother.
Yeah.
You kill her mother.
Yeah.
That was,
the Mist
you know,
Dragon, yeah.
I know because I've played 1, 2, and 3. I know we're unusual for that franchise, but like, you know, were people doing that in sprite-based RPGs at the time?
Is it Cecil or Cecil?
Technically, I think it's Cecil.
Cecil. Okay. When Cecil becomes a
Cecil
paladin,
Harvey.
that moment is amazing because you saw all of the horrible things that Cecil went through. It's like he's finally rejecting his past and embracing like this new path, and it's amazing.
The ending of Shovel Knight clearly is a Final Fantasy IV reference, right? Don't they have the same shot of like of like him up like on the mountain, you know,
right.
the camera goes by, and he's
right.
like, I gotta go meditate. I gotta go figure some stuff
when he
out.
does that. And I also liked like just about the game. It was, I mean, you still were going like, oh, here, go to this town. Like, yo, now you got to go to like this castle and like defeat this boss because we need this thing. The cool thing was there was enough optional stuff in there, and you had like the overworld and you could explore it. And one of the things I remember fondly was going back to the basement of Baron, and you could go to this like alternate like throne room. And the king's ghost is in there because he was really dead the whole time.
Right.
And then like Odin comes out, and you're like, "What is this boss battle?" It's a summon you can get, and then like you have like a countdown. And this like rolls you if you like aren't powerful enough. You could go there so early, like, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna get Odin," and you can get demolished. Then like the optional summons for Rydia, like Leviathan.
Summons.
Yeah.
I was like, you had to like defeat the queen and king of the Sylphlins.
Did Summoners launch in 3, or was 4 the first?
No, you could summon
So
him.
yeah, Rydia was a summoner. So
Well, in 3, sorry, Final Fantasy numbers, man.
Yeah. So yes, 4 proper. Yeah, Rydia was your summoner. It could summon like remember Chocobo? It just like had Chocobo running across. You go,
Yeah.
and then like it would peace out. And you're like, "What's up, Chocobo? Thanks for saving me."
I think the one thing, not to harp on this game at all, but like
Whoa.
I'm a 6 guy. 6 is not only my favorite Final Fantasy game, it's my favorite RPG ever.
Right.
Next to like Skyrim and stuff, because it's just a totally different ball game. But I think that the one, not criticism, but the one reason why I hold 6 maybe a little bit higher than 4 is there was a lot of great story moments, a lot of great character relationships, a lot of sacrifices that characters make. The story definitely has crazy ups and downs. You always mention that you ride a whale to the moon. I mean, that's an instant win in any RPG. I feel like 6 was a little more grounded. I think 5 was a little zanier because they tried to bring the classes in and like kind of changed up the character dynamic about having like 2 of them
You
be
fight
family
a
members
giant
and stuff.
talking purple octopus on a stage, man.
Well, you do that in every Final Fantasy game. Every Final Fantasy game is going to have crazy stuff. But I
Right.
felt like the relationships between the characters were a little more grounded in reality, whereas like, who's the dwarf who's just like, see you later, woo! And he like jumps off the ship. There's just a lot of really
Sid?
crazy wow moments. Oh, it's